Hello, Stellaris community! This is Mordred Viking, the community manager for Stellaris. The 3.6 Orion update is available now. Want to know exactly what this free Custodian patch contains? Well, look no further. We've compiled most of the major changes and new features here for your convenience. The 3.6 Orion update contains new galaxy shapes, new artwork, as well as the ability for hive minds to choose a variant on the Reanimator Civic from the Necroids species pack, and a full fleet combat rebalance, including a new ship type and changes to combat computers. In 3.6, we've also reworked how the Ascension paths from Utopia work, as well as added a new Ascension path. We've added a new Spiritualist Federation type to the specialized Federation types from Federations, and added a new Politics Tradition tree, which also requires Federations. We've added new orbital ring buildings, which are included in the Overlord expansion. For base game changes, we've added a new relic, accessibility improvements, new first contact events, terraforming candidates are now shown in the galaxy map, added a new event chain, and tweaked some Empire modifiers. We'll be showing all of this stuff off in the video, so stay tuned! We'll be going over a lot of content today, but for the full list of bug fixes, new features, and other changes, you can find a link to the patch notes in the description below. In the 3.6 Orion update, we've added several new galaxy shapes to the galaxy generation. While many of these galaxy shapes were inspired by actual shapes of galaxies out in the universe, while others are more interesting galaxy shapes we thought would be fun to play on. We've got the 3-arm galaxy spiral, which is hard to do when you've only got 2 arms. We've got the 6-arm galaxy spiral. We've got the Bard's galaxy, the Starburst galaxy, the Cartwheel galaxy. You thought I was going to do a cartwheel? No. And the Spoked galaxy. We hope you enjoy these new galaxy shapes. We find playing on these new maps are a refreshing change and leads to more interesting gameplay overall. Do you like the new galaxy shapes? Are there any we've missed? Let us know in the comments below. Reanimators included in the Necroid species pack has gotten some love from our Custodian art teams. First off, we have new textures and shaders for the reanimated Leviathans. Producing these textures was some of the biggest internal feedback on the Reanimator Civic. All of the Stellaris staff wanted zombie Leviathans, apparently. Producing them required the cooperation of every discipline within the art team, with beautiful concept art, new shaders, and breathtaking VFX. Secondly, coming to the Necroid species pack is the Cordyceptic Hive Civic. This new Civic requires Necroids in Utopia and is the hive mind version of the Reanimator Civic. We weren't satisfied with simply copying Reanimators for hive minds, however. Cordyceptic hives will start with 3 reanimated amoebas in place of their 3 starting corvettes, and will automatically reanimate organic space fauna that they kill. They will also get a chance to reanimate defeated organic leviathans, and gain an additional 50% to space fauna weapon damage and attack speed. But that's not all. Should you find a system teeming with organic life, such as the Tianka Vec, Tion Hort, or Amor Alveo, you'll be able to construct a special starbase building, the Cordyceptic Reanimation Facility, which will produce a fleet of reanimated space fauna every 5 years. For a while now, we've been aware of some issues with fleet combat, mainly that artillery battleships dominate the late game. Disengagement mechanics favour artillery battleships, destroyers and cruisers have extremely limited uses once the next ship type is unlocked, command limits are ineffective, and doom stacks aren't fun. The last 2 combat issues were deemed out of scope for this rework and may be explored in future updates. In the Orion update, we've changed the behaviour of most of the combat computers, as well as added a new combat computer. Swarm and new torpedo computers will charge in. Picket and Line will attempt to stay at the range of your median range weapons, and artillery and carrier computers will now attempt to stay at the maximum range of their longest ranged weapons, and ships in combat should now attempt to maintain their desired ranges. This is not all we did, however. We have a ton of rebalancing to weapon components and the slots they fit into. G-slots have been repurposed from missile slots and now used for torpedoes, with missiles moving to S&M slots. G-slots are now only available on frigates, which we will discuss below, and cruisers. Proton and neutron launchers have been reclassed into torpedo-type weapons. Torpedo-class weapons have been changed in general. Apart from being limited to the G-slot, they are now also short-ranged, high-damage weapons that also gain a multiplicative damage bonus based on the size of their target. Torpedoes targeting battleships will deal more damage when targeting corvettes, for example. We've also added more differentiation between the different sizes of weapons. Smaller weapons will generally fire faster and large weapons will generally fire slower, but they'll do more damage. We've also added a minimum range to most large class weapons, except for lasers. Strikecraft will no longer intercept missiles, but they will continue to fight each other and larger ships. Flak has been changed to more strongly counter strikecraft, while point defense has been changed to more strongly counter missiles and torpedoes. Ships now gain a limited number of disengagement opportunities per combat. All current drives provide one disengagement roll once the ship takes hull damage below its disengagement threshold. However, side jump drives provide two. The hit and run walk doctrine grants all of your ships an additional attempt. Civilian ships set to evasive will continue to try to disengage with every hit. We feel this rework adds a breath of fresh air to space combat in Stellaris, and we can't wait to see what the community at large thinks of these new changes. After all of these changes, we've also changed how the ship auto-designer works in Orion. Where previously the ship designer would auto-design one best ship, there are now different roles that you can choose, and the auto-designer will choose components that best match the ship role you've chosen. The ship roles are as following. Screen focuses on picket ship sections armed with point defense and flak, available to corvettes, destroyers and defense platforms. Gunships generally prefers to maximize the number of medium-sized weapons available. They're available to corvettes, destroyers, cruisers, battleships, titans, and defense platforms. Artillery prefers large, long-ranged weapons, or putting missiles in the smaller slots. Available to corvettes, frigates, destroyers, cruisers, battleships, titans, and defense platforms. Brawlers! They get up close with very short-range weapons like autocannons and disruptors, available to corvettes and destroyers. Torpedoes use short-range torpedoes to destroy larger ships, available to frigates and cruisers. Carriers they hang back and launch strikecraft from maximum engagement range. These are available to cruisers, battleships, and defense platforms. One thing we were never really completely happy with was how Ascension paths were chosen. Instead of being a change that ramped up over time, choosing an Ascension path became saving up 2 Ascension perks, and then choosing to ascend while the game is paused. In the Orion updates, choosing an Ascension will be more of a gradual process than in previous versions. After unlocking the prerequisites for one of the 4 Ascension paths, you'll be able to choose an Ascension perk that will unlock a special Ascension tradition tree, and progress through this tradition tree, in most cases, locked behind other technologies or special projects. We've made these changes to all of the currently existing Ascension paths, genetic, synthetic, psionic, as well as the new cybernetic tradition tree. In the Orion update, we have split cybernetics from the synthetic Ascension path and turned it into its own unique Ascension, available to regular empires, hive minds, and driven assimilators for owners of Utopia. Cybernetic Ascension plays into the plug-and-play nature of the robotic enhancements in sci-fi. This Ascension path is unlocked by the Flesh is Weak Ascension perk, which is renamed the Organo-Machine Interfacing for driven assimilators and hive minds. To expand upon the Cybernetic Ascension, we've added the cybernetic traits that are only available to cybernetic pops, after taking the integrated anatomy tradition. These traits make use of normal biological trait point and pick limits, but are not blocked by any biological traits. The traits available to cyborgs are based off of the traits available to robotic species. However, they are slightly cheaper in terms of trait points, while giving the pops a certain amount of energy upkeep. One of our goals with the Ascension Path rework was to increase the value of these Ascension paths that seemed lackluster. To that end, we've repurposed the Synthetic Age Ascension perk, previously the only Ascension available to machines, to allow machine intelligences to complete the Synthetic Ascension as well. Unlike Synthetic Ascension for regular empires, this does not require Utopia. While Psionic Ascension has received numerous buffs, the biggest change happens when you breach the Shroud for the first time. As part of the Ascension Path changes, we have reworked how forming a covenant with the Shroud entities works. Now, when you breach the Shroud for the first time, you'll be approached to form a covenant with the Shroud entity, chosen semi-randomly but weighted by your ethics, civics, Ascension perks, and several other choices you've made throughout the game to that point. If you choose to form a covenant, you will receive a weak modifier to the Shroud entity that will grow more powerful over time, as well as granting various boons and unique components that are only available by forming a covenant with a Shroud entity. If you choose to form a covenant, you will receive a weak modifier from that Shroud entity that will grow more powerful over time, as well as granting you various boons and unique components that are only available by forming a covenant with a Shroud entity. If you choose not to form a covenant, you may be approached later by another Shroud entity to form a covenant, or in exchange for Shroud, you can choose to approach a specific Shroud entity and attempt to form a covenant with them directly. Beware, however, your chosen Shroud entity may not be willing to form a covenant with you at this time, and may be very displeased to be interacting with your psionics at all. You have been warned. Also coming in the Orion update is the new Specialist Federation type, the Holy Covenant. This Federation type is included in the Federation's expansion, and plays to the strengths of a Spiritualist empire. While machine intelligence empires are allowed to join the Holy Covenant, they are not permitted to become president of the Federation under normal circumstances. As your new Holy Covenant levels up, you will receive a bunch of bonuses to Unity production, priest output, and Spiritualist faction. At the maximum level, these federations can turn Spiritualist empires into powerhouses, ready to spread the good word upon a moment's notice. Orbital rings were added with the release of Overlord. These massive constructions around your planets added a way to increase your planet's size, or a second starbase in your system, with some unique buildings to boost specializing planetary production or defense. We did identify a few missed opportunities with regards to the orbital ring buildings. So, in 3.6 Orion, we've added a number of planetary unique buildings to orbital rings. You can now construct Psi-Core, an orbital shield generator, galactic stock exchange, assembly complex, noble estates, or the slave processing facility in your orbital ring, and save the valuable building slots on your planets. Most of these buildings will have the same effects on the orbital ring as they do on the planet's surface. Lore and storytelling have always been at the heart of what makes Stellaris great. To this end, we've added a new relic to the base game, the Crystal of Ordiskia. The Crystal of Ordiskia has been described as an artifact of incalculable wealth. It is said that the value of even a single shard is enough to drive mortal minds to insanity. When found, this artifact will passively increase your Empire's rare crystal production, and when activated will provide up to 60 months of energy income for your Empire, as well as give one of your scientists the maniacal trait, as long as you're not a hive mind. We won't tell you how to find this relic, but guard it carefully if you do find it in your playthrough, or I'm coming for it. We've added some new accessibility improvements to the 3.6 Orion. By opening Settings and going to the Accessibility tab, there is a new option at the bottom called Text-to-Speech. Turning this on will use the Windows or Mac's built-in text-to-speech generator, and adds a new icon to event windows and other places that feature long text that will allow you to have the event text read to you.
A deep space spy drone has stumbled upon the site of what appears
Important to note that if you're getting text-to-speech in the wrong language, you need to set your text-to-speech voice to your desired language, and this functionality is not supported by Linux at this time. Here are a couple of other things to know about this new system. Pressing the TTS button again will stop the current reading. You can open the pause menu with escape at any point while TTS is reading text in order to make it stop. This is useful if you've already closed the window containing the text and you don't want the TTS to continue reading. The voice generation itself is handled by your operating system, which means that there may be cases where things sound suboptimal, but we cannot address this by adjusting the system itself. Great care should be taken not to feed the TTS texts pertaining to individual freedoms of synthetic life forms. We've also gone through the First Contact event and added more randomly triggering events to First Contact. We've added a new event chain, Negative Mass, and terraforming candidates should now appear on the galaxy map. Just to reiterate, this is not the full list of changes in the 3.6 Orion update. You can find a link to the full patch notes in the description below. Thanks for playing Stellaris, and we hope you enjoyed this latest batch of features and changes. What would you like Stellaris to work on next? Let us know in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and also subscribe to this channel for more official Stellaris content. We'll see you next time. Goodbye. And we're good.